Today, on Effective Leaders Serving with Purpose, we're meeting with Father Greg Boyle, founder and director of Homeboy Industries, the world's largest gang intervention and rehabilitation program.
Jesus, as a leader, as a model leader, he invited us to take 4 things seriously: inclusion, nonviolence, unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance. If we take those 4 things seriously, then we are taking seriously what Jesus took seriously. And that becomes really the core of what leadership is. One of the keys to success is that I don't care about success, and I think that's important. Mother Teresa would say, we're not called to be successful, we're called to be faithful. For over 25 years, it's been the privilege of my life to work with gang members in Los Angeles. My life has been changed radically and utterly because of it, and the homies have taught me everything of value. But in the last couple of years, they've taught me how to text, and the homies have taught me a new one, OHN, which apparently stands for, oh, hell no. How does being a Jesuit inform my leadership? I've been a Jesuit for 52 years, so it's part of the air you breathe. Ignatius had a notion called acatamiento, which is translated as affectionate awe. And it's kind of a stance at the margins in our world with those whose burdens are more than they can bear. That informs how I see things. I never think my call is to make a difference, because then it's about me. I think my invitation is to go to the margins so that the folks at the margins make me different. And then it's about us. It's absolutely, exquisitely mutual.
Something that I would like other leaders to have, like Father Greg, would be the open-mindedness to look in places where typically people don't look, and the willingness to just learn about things that you probably would never learn about.
People always think, that motivation gets bumped around a little bit by setbacks, and I don't really believe in setbacks. I don't believe in disappointment. I don't believe in frustration. All we have is now, this present moment. How can we be anchored in gratitude? How can we, just do the next loving thing? That's what keeps you from being toppled by challenges. I think that's important. Once you kind of say the engine is not to be successful or to have outcomes that are verifiable outcomes that say success, I'm happy if that happens, but that's not the engine that drives this place. It's the person right in front of you. You're delighting in the person in front of you, period. It's not about me reaching them. It's about me allowing myself to be reached and to receive who they are and to allow my heart to be altered. All those things are what leadership ought to look like.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest videos from Family Theater Productions.
Here at Homeboy, we're allergic to the idea of holding the bar up and asking folks to measure up, and mainly because our God doesn't do that with us. I think our God says, what's all the measuring about, I think that's a good question. So instead we hold the mirror up. We give people back to themselves. We said, here's the truth of who you are. You're exactly what God had in mind when God made you. Once you know that that's the truth, it enables you to roll up your sleeves. You don't want to measure. You don't want to say, oh, not yet. You're almost there. Oh, wow. If only you know who you are is exactly right. You couldn't be one bit better. Now, you could recognize that better than you do, but it's not about becoming a better person. Nobody walks through this door and then 18 months later, they're better people.
Words can't even really state how I feel about Father G. He's amazing. Every time I need help, he's there to help me, whether it's through words, struggles, and problems. That guy would just have your back at 100%.
When I talk about leadership, it's really homegrown. It's homies who have come up through the program who now run the program. That's kind of important for us here. We responded as a community to things that came up. Gang members aren't in school. They've been kicked out of the school. No school wants them. Okay, let's start a school. That's kind of how it worked. And then our students from 8 different gangs and the projects in my parish would say, if only we had jobs. Okay, let's try to find employers willing to hire them. Then we couldn't. And then we said, well, let's start stuff. Let's start maintenance crew, a landscaping crew. And then Homeboy Bakery began, and Homeboy Tortillas, and then we were off and running. Now we have 14 different social enterprises.
It's almost time for Dodger season. Woo! Yeah! So they're having a few job fairs.
I was just impressed. I had no idea this was Homeboys. I didn't know his sole form of what he was doing here, but he was working with gangsters. I just never knew somebody like that who would give second chances.
Well, it was all very organic, the founding of Homeboy Industries. It was born of a particular moment of, what we would call the decade of death, which was 88 to 98, 92 being the highest moment of gang-related homicides, 1,000 in Los Angeles. At the moment, it's been cut in half and cut in half again. And people would say some of that reason is the fact that this exists, and has for 37 years. Before Homeboy, there was no exit ramp. Gang members couldn't get off this crazy, violent freeway. Clearly in Los Angeles, gang members were the most demonized people there were. Now this place has softened how we see things, and I would say has enabled the people of Los Angeles to see as God sees. But it's for the long haul. If you want the quick fix to anything, brace yourselves, because it's going to take some time. In the early days, I was able to see quickly that gang violence is about a lethal absence of hope. So if you look at it superficially, then you think, oh, it's about conflict. Well, how do let's get them to do conflict resolution, except that the violence was about something else. Their definition is, we are the guys who hate those guys. And there's no kind of rhyme or reason to it, but that's kind of what they would assert. That's important, I think, in our culture, because, we say, stand against hate. I go, well, what do you think hate is? In a sense, hate is not a thing. It points to a thing. It points to the fact that nobody healthy has ever hated. So then how do we help heal? And that always happens here too, initially. Oh my God, I have to work side by side with that guy. I used to shoot him, and he used to shoot at me. And now we're making croissants. So this place knows that it's the relationship that heals. So we try to engage people in a relationship where people find their wholeness in community.
So there I am with two homies, Manuel and Poncho, older vatos who've been to prison, and they're going to help me give a talk at a high school. And we're only 15 minutes on the road when Manuel, he gets an incoming text, and he kind of reads it and he chuckles to himself. And I said, well, what is it? And he goes, oh, it's dumb. It's from Snoopy back at the office. And I said, well, what's he say? Hey, dog, it's me, Snoops. Yeah, they got my ass locked up at county jail. They're charging me with being the ugliest vato in America. You have to come down right now, show them they got the wrong guy. We died laughing, the three of us. And then I realized that Manuel and Snoopy are enemies. They're from rival gangs. They used to shoot bullets at each other. Now they shoot text messages. And there's a word for that, and the word is kinship.
If the world recognizes the kinship that you find here and the love, it's gonna make a difference.
The marrow of the gospel was inviting people to imagine a circle of compassion and then imagine nobody standing outside that circle. We want to be equally people of integrity. Our discipleship will be marked by joy and fearlessness. People will see that and they'll understand what we're about and what we're seeking, which is to align our hearts with the God who wants us to be in communion with each other.